The Guns on Pegs podcast is brought to you by ITAP Group. Hello and welcome to the Guns on Pegs podcast. My name is George Brown and I'm joined as usual by Chris Horn. Hi Chris.
George, how are we doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good indeed.
We're delighted to be joined again by Alex Keeble for our discussion on the benefits that a well-managed shoot can bring to the countryside and what good practice looks like. This is a big topic and one that certainly has been debated a lot on the shoots that I've been on this season.
Well, and I guess to a degree on this podcast as well. You know, it is the most important conversation in shooting right now, really. In some ways, I think if we get this stuff right, then it gives shooting the longest possible future. Before we get into that, if you missed the last episode, Alex joined us for a very fun episode talking about things like goggles for gun dogs and the benefits or otherwise of being restrained on the peg. So if you missed that, go and check it out. But I think we should get right into it, Chris.
Indeed. So for those of you that did miss that episode, Alex is a former gamekeeper and deer manager in the Cotswolds, Chilterns and Suffolk. He's got a degree in conservation and the environment and is now a Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust advisor, whilst also having a really awesome job, which I can't wait to hear more about, of managing the shoot at the GWCT's Loddington farm, which is part of the Allerton project. Welcome to you, Alex.
Thank you both. Hello.
So let's get straight into it. Chris mentioned the Allerton project. I think just for context, can you just give us a very brief explainer on what the Allerton project is so that people know where we're starting from in this conversation?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So the Allerton project is 320 hectares and it's a demonstration farm in Leicestershire that was gifted by Lord and Lady Allerton in 1992 to the GWCT. It was gifted on the understanding that we would use the farm to conduct research into sustainable farming, game and landscape management. So it was a really, really useful gift and a good acreage as well. I mean, 320 hectares is really, really substantial.
It's a big old chunk of ground.
And 34 years is just unbelievable that you guys have managed to obviously keep that going through obviously the charity and all of the incredible results that is going to show. I mean, you must have run tons and tons of tests over that period.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, we've done an awful lot of research on the site into lots of different things: regenerative agriculture, carbon emissions, biodiversity, soil, water, agroforestry, stewardship. We've got a big data set of wildlife monitoring that we've done ever since the project began in 1992. So a significant amount of time that we've been having this place for. The only downside to it is it's quite heavy clay. So growing crops on it is quite challenging, and we've had a lot of rain the previous years, which has made things a little bit of a struggle to get crops in the ground. But we have actually got some crops in the ground this year that are looking very, very good.
Excellent. And if you're listening and thinking the Allerton project, that sounds familiar. That is because the project has, in fact, been in the news in the last little while. You may have seen a news story that DEFRA have allocated quite a substantial amount of money to send civil servants on a training course to help them understand farming. And it is at the Allerton project that this training is going to be delivered. It's going to be delivered by the team there. So it's actually it goes to show just how important the Allerton project may well turn out to be for the future of the countryside, because they're going to be on this demonstration farm where there is, as we shall get into, a proper shoot.
It's incredible news that. I honestly cannot believe, with the government the way it is at the moment and some of the most ridiculous decisions we've seen that affect the countryside in the last few years, that the GWCT have ended up with the opportunity to educate people in policy making. I mean, that is just genuinely mad.
It is significant.
a properly serious win. So, okay, let's talk about the shoot a bit then. So the Loddington Shoot is an integral part of the Allerton project. That's right, isn't it?
It is indeed, yes, yeah. So, originally, we got the farm in 1992, and originally we implemented a gamekeeper back then to implement the three-legged stool that we talk about in the GWCT.
Yeah.
So you got the predation management, you got habitat and supplementary winter feeding, which we put in place, and it was a wild bird shoot back then, back in the 90s, the early 90s. We had a good stock of wild birds because of that habitat management and predation management and supplementary feeding that we could auction off shoot dates for wild birds only. It's actually part of a bigger study that we've had on the wildlife monitoring side at the Allerton project, because we implemented a gamekeeper the year after that we had the project, but we only had the gamekeeper in place for about 9 years, and the numbers of songbirds rose by 114% in 8 years alone, and brown hare numbers rose by 1,500% in just 3 years. So it just shows you that those three methods of management really did help songbird numbers and brown hare numbers, as you would expect they would.
I mean, those figures are astonishing.
It is, yeah.
And it's interesting because we often talk about how a well run shoot is good for biodiversity, it's good for the countryside, but to be able to put numbers like that on it's quite remarkable, and it sort of gives you an idea about just how good it is. I think at times it can sometimes feel a bit like lip service, or a claim that there isn't a great deal of evidence to support. But when you look at figures like that, it's quite hard to go, oh well, it's not that it's marginally better.
No, it's significant. Yeah.
Do you know? I mean, that they are brilliant numbers, and they're obviously also corroborated in a scientific manner.
They are
everything's done properly, so they're impossible to argue with. Obviously, our opponents would say, "Yeah, fine, on a well-run shoot," and I also agree with that to a point. I think that there's a lot of shoots that probably don't necessarily understand maybe what went into that to actually deliver those sorts of results. Can you give us an idea about? I mean, you mentioned the three-legged stool,
yeah,
but I mean, let's take the accusations of some gamekeepers as being like pheasant farmers, rather than doing the sort of stuff you're talking about. Can you give us a flavour about what it looks like on your syndicate, to the average person who's listening to this, their syndicate, or another type of shoot?
Yeah, so currently we have got about 12% of the ground is in a mid-tier stewardship schemes. So we've got lots of flower-rich margins, overwintered birdseed mixes. We use supplementary feeding. Habitat-wise of the actual shoot and the landscape of the shoot is it's quite rolling. It's heavy clay, like we said previously. They're mixed plantation woodlands. And then there's some semi-ancient woodlands, semi-natural places as well. We've got big, thick hedges, a mosaic of different hedges. So we've got some that we've laid recently. We've got some that we've coppiced. We've got some really big ones that you would almost think are spinny because they got so big. So just like a diverse mix of habitat across the whole farm. And this isn't just concentrated in where the drives are. This is spread out across the whole holding. So there are patches of birdseed mix and patches of wildflower mixes and beetle banks that's actually spread across the whole farm, even if we don't shoot it.
That's very interesting. And do you have, in addition to the wild birdseed mixes, do you have sort of dedicated game cover crops as well, or is it?
Yes, we have some small areas of margins alongside some of the stewardship covers, which are reed canary grass, and originally were reed canary grass and chicory, just again to act as windbreak and also provide nesting cover for wild pheasants. second year mixes of kale are really, really good game cover mixes.
Yeah.
And it just gives you that cover throughout the winter and through to the next spring, instead of sort of some of the traditional mixes of maize where you would flail off when it gets dry enough, and then maybe you don't have that habitat there anymore for birds to utilize.
Do you know what is fascinating about everything you've just said is there is so much thought that's gone into every single one of those decisions.
Oh yes.
Like you're talking, the choice of what's in that margin, the choice of what's in that cover crop there versus what's in the one over there, versus how that forms against these different types of hedges and whatever else. I don't know how many. I know that there's a lot of people that go to that extent too, because they absolutely love it, like we do, seeing these results and being super proud of it. But that's a serious commitment.
Yes, yeah, it's a serious commitment, and one commitment actually that we were sort of didn't know. Well, we still don't really know where we're going to be, because we don't know what stewardship is going to look like coming forward. We don't know how restrictive it's going to be. We don't know what's going to be available, and considering all of our game cover plots and margins and beetle banks are all funded by mid-tier and SFI options, we will have to reduce the habitat if we can't get it funded.
Yeah, because I guess even though it's a demonstration farm and I guess you'd call it a research shoot. Would you call it a research shoot? I quite like the idea of one of them. I'm
with you. I think that sounds better than a normal shoot.
It still has to wash its face, right? It still has to operate in a commercial manner. Otherwise, none of it makes sense.
Both parts. So the shoot has to wash its face, and the farm itself, we aim to wash its face with the farming side of things as well, which is obviously more and more challenging. So that is the aim. It's a conventional farm. It's not an organic farm or anything like that, because we wanted to, to reach out to the masses.
So do you know what's fascinating about that then is I saw that comment from Defra. There's talk of reviewing SFI because they're saying that a lot of farmers would do this anyway. Why should we pay them to do it? What you've just alluded to, I imagine on a spreadsheet you can say these beetle banks wouldn't be here if you didn't pay for them. Done.
Yeah, that's effectively what would happen. And we've got the results, to show what songbirds do when, you have the habitat and you have the predation management. But we've also got the results, not so much on the habitat side of things with the way numbers dropped, but from talking earlier about the numbers that have rose in 8 years whilst having a gamekeeper, we came to the conclusion we need to work out which one of those 3 stalls, so the predation management, supplementary feeding, or the habitat, is key. So we actually took the gamekeeper away after 8 years to see what the songbird numbers did and what the brown hare numbers did, among other things. And the numbers of songbirds dropped over 5 years. And then we decided to take the supplementary feeding out and see what happened to the songbirds then, and the numbers dropped even further. Now, they didn't drop back to the baseline levels because we'd had all that habitat in place. And obviously we didn't want to get rid of all the habitat that we'd created, ideally. And then we employed another gamekeeper and actually went from a wild bird shoot into a released pheasant shoot. And the numbers of songbirds and hares rose. They didn't rise to the numbers that they were 8 years ago, but songbirds are now 92% higher than the first recorded in 1992, and brown hare numbers are 800% higher. So
it's coming back.
It's coming back. So it's come back, and we've found out that actually, unlike some nature reserves where you may well have lovely habitat and you may have the supplementary feeding, but not the predation management, that you'll get an increase in songbirds and in hares, but you won't get to what you could get if you had the predation management involved as well.
Right. So sorry, just for a thickie like me to catch up here. So you bought the keeper in, you've now got a release-based shoot.
That's great.
Having taken it away for a while, and numbers are back up, but not quite as good as a pure wild shoot, which, the first thought that came into my head is, well, over that time period, corvid numbers, predator numbers generally have increased significantly on a sort of national level. So are you actually talking apples with apples here? Because what is the margin for error, sort of reducing that down to take into account those sorts of things. But basically, what I'm getting at is there an argument to say that actually you're back where you were?
So there's no, because our songbird levels are nice and high. So they've caught up nearly to what they once were. Brown hares being the same, but predation is a big issue, and it has changed over the 34 years that we've had the Allerton project. That's correct. So we've built up. We've got lovely beetle banks where young leverets can be born in and reside throughout the day, but we've also got high numbers of badgers in the area as well. Foxes are controlled, but we do have high number of predators as well. So they will, I'm sure, be having some sort of effect, although we haven't done any science at the Allerton project to see whether or not they are having an effect.
I want to get a bit more detail on the shoot. So how many days a year?
So we're doing between 12 and 14 days a year.
Driven days?
Yeah, that's correct. So interestingly, on our shoot, we sell the day as a day. We don't sell it on a per bird basis. So we sell a day as a 120 to a 150 bird day early on, and then it goes down to an 80 to 100 bird day, fully driven, a bit later on in the season. And we have a couple of smaller 30 to 50 bird days that we sell. So we sell it as an experience. We don't really think that it should be based on per bird. It's how good a sport you have and everything else, and hosting skills and 11Cs and everything else that goes with it. And we actually sell these days at our regional events. So our regional organisers will have our days. They've got them now. And at charity events that we do for the GWCT, which may be clay days or dinners, those days will be sold at those auctions. And by doing that, you actually get a different mix of people coming to Loddington and coming to the Allerton Shoot every year. You might get some that are the same, but the majority of the people that come have never been before. And that's, again, another reason for us to sell it that way, because we could quite easily sell these days every year to the same teams, but that's not getting our message across, which we really want to get across from the GWCT.
Really interesting. And all these questions are kind of questions you'd never normally ask to a normal keeper, but because this is a research project, we're going to ask all the blunt questions. So you said the number of days. How many birds do you release?
We put 2,600 pheasants down, just pheasant poults, and they come from Worcestershire Game Farm, at Paul Jevons at Worcestershire Game Farm. And they're Chinese cross Scandinavian pheasants, so they're very pale, very small birds. A lot of keepers
like the clappers.
That's it. A lot of keepers dislike them because of the wandering tendencies, but we seem to do really, really well on ours. We aim this year. We shot 51% return.
I was about to ask. That's my next question. Decent.
Yeah.
I mean, incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, are they just stuck in the clay? Is that why they're...
Yeah.
No, but that is interesting. Do you think there's still a good wild stock around? Is that helping? You must have some.
Not particularly, no.
Oh, interesting.
No.
I assumed that with all the lovely nesting habitat and all that sort of stuff, you'd be getting a few wild broods. But
we do get wild broods, but not too many. I think it's just that the farm itself is, because of all the habitat, there's so many areas that these birds can wander to during summer that it really does hold game. And I think that's one thing that you'll see on a lot of places that are maybe lacking. Maybe they could do a little bit more on the habitat side of things, just to keep the poults interested during summer. It doesn't have to be near the shoot, but if it's on the ground, because
just keep them there rather than letting them.
Habitat is so key to holding game, and not just out in the fields, but woodland management. And we planted some plantations 30 years ago at Allerton that we've been managing for the last sort of 5 or 6 years quite intensively, and to try and get the growth coming up, you need to let light in, which means you need to be felling trees.
That's so interesting. I just can't quite get my head around 50%. I should think that most keepers around the country would give their left leg to have a return like that.
Obviously, in the game shooting census, or the shoot owner census that we do every year, we would always get averages back. Obviously way lower than that. But what is interesting is that a lot of small shoots actually have really quite high returns. So I reckon there'll be a few syndicates listening to this going, God, is that all? but that's usually because they're just bordered by big shoots and
I
don't
was going to
quite
say,
realise.
shooting other people's birds doesn't count.
No, indeed, but a lot of shoots, and having spoken to many people at the game fair over the years, don't quite realise the number of other people's birds they're actually shooting. Because if you look at it on a percentage basis and said, right, your average is more like 33, you can work backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do have neighbouring shoots nearby that are a little bit bigger than us, and not significantly so. And they do shoot some of ours, because obviously our pheasants are, you can tell because they're bright blue backs and really pale. And we occasionally shoot some of theirs. But an interesting thing that we do at the Loddington Shoot as well is that we wing tag half of our pheasants as well.
I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, which is really, really interesting.
Yeah. So
go on.
Yeah.
So effectively, what we do is, so half of the 2,600 pheasants are wing tagged, and these pheasant poults have been bred in the rearing pens with perches, effectively. So in the runs, it's common practice. You see it quite a lot. In the runs, there'll be fir boughs and bits of tubal one across, so the birds can perch and get up out of the way of the floor. And the reasoning is, the thinking is behind this project is that if you provide that early on in life, does that then mean that the birds go to roost quicker when you put them in the release pen? And then does that mean that their survival rates are better? And then does that mean then you can get a better return overall from it? So so we've got 5 release pens, and I think there's 10 different colours, because one half is having perches and the other one's not, so we can compare the two. And then there's some that aren't tagged.
Where are you at in this study? Hold on, I'm on tenterhooks.
Yeah, so currently we've not got any data we can let out at the minute.
Okay, but hold on. Okay, where do you think it's going to turn out? Different question.
I think there might well be a slight increase, maybe, but I don't think it'll be that significant. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, I just see the data on a yearly basis, so I haven't really disseminated it to have a look. But.
Well, if anybody does want to know more about this particular topic, Avian and Gemma did an episode of the Shoot Hub podcast with an academic from the University of Exeter, where they were talking about this very topic. I can strongly recommend that particular episode. But I love this idea of tagging your pheasants. It put me in mind of a thing that they did in Australia, I want to say sort of 10 years ago or so, where they were stocking Sydney Harbour or something like that with kingfish, and they tagged one. And if you caught that particular kingfish, you won $1 million Australian dollars. It was called the $1 million fish. And it raised so much money because you had to buy a tag or whatever it was. You had to buy your fishing license or whatever. I reckon that there's
That's a good idea.
I know it's a good idea.
Yeah, but hold on. The danger with that is, in a shooting sense, like, shoot all of our birds and you've got a bigger chance of winning. So that's not.
Well, no,
I
think what you have to do is you have to do it at the game farm level, so that nobody knows where it's gone.
Okay, yeah,
that one bird, and I think they tagged a few others. And if you got one of the lower ones, you got like a smaller cash prize or something. But you have to obviously buy into the competition. So if you're the one who shoots the one with the shoots it, and you haven't bought your entry, then you don't win.
100%. When you do these multiplier sort of, you know how the GWCT do like gun draws and stuff, and it's like 100, 150 quid a ticket, and it's like, oh, it's limited to 250 tickets, and you think, oh, that's pretty good odds. Obviously, times those two numbers together, and it's quite a big sum. And you can quite quickly see why, if they had the gun donated, or at least at like minimal rate, that's quite a big money earner. Yeah. This thing costs
£2.50.
So let's say, well, yeah, but you need to give a prize. So
yeah,
like work backwards. If you said 100 quid, and then how many guns do you have through? You got 10 times 10 to 12. You've only got 100 guns. Actually, you're not going to get much take up. So I'm doing my maths on air. This is embarrassing, but you're only getting 10 grand. Like, if every gun takes up, you're only getting 10 grand. So you need to be offering like £1,000
Yeah, and
That's quite a good lottery,
It
though.
would be completely. The difficulty is to know which bird would have been yours that you shot that had the wing tag on, because you can't see the wing tag at all.
How bad would it be if it was a runner?
No, you wing it, and then it's found in the game cart because some spaniels come back from half a mile away with it. No one knows whose it is, and then no one wins. That's perfect. Actually,
it's a rebate for the entire team.
No. It's just no verdict. Everyone loses the money. It's charitable donation.
Another really interesting thing about the wing tagging study is that we actually have on the tags, it says the date. So there's a date stamp on it. And the oldest hen bird that we shot has been three years old, released 3 years ago. So
wow,
that's fascinating.
Yeah,
because I mean, the stats that GWCT put out about the number, the sort of survival rate and time of birds has always been quite demoralizing. In the number that reach the end of the season or beyond and survive to the next season or whatever. So 3 years? I mean, that's ridiculously impressive with the number of predators about, plus the fact that you're sending them over the guns. I mean, either that's a really lazy.
That was the first time that hen bird went over a gun. That went back every time.
Yeah, it was on an outside drive actually that we never shoot, and we managed to catch up with her. But I mean, one would have thought that she would have tried to nest every year. So I mean, she's done very well to survive that long.
That's fantastic.
That's really cool. So how many birds make it through, like genuinely through?
Oh, not a huge amount. But you know, another thing that we do at the Allerton project is that. So Matt, who is our gamekeeper, I sort of haven't mentioned him yet, but he's our gamekeeper, and he's full time from February to June doing trapping and larsen trapping, and he's also topping up the feeders. So we supplementary feed with hoppers right the way through to the end of May. Beginning of June. Well, because we've got that food source on the farm right the way through up to May, we end up pulling in quite a lot of birds from elsewhere that may have wandered off places. And because we've got the habitat there as well, so come April, May, the farm has actually got a lot of pheasants on.
So that if you don't care about songbirds, but you have a shoot, there is still good reason to continue feeding right the way through the summer, which is free pheasants.
Yeah, I like where you've gone with this, because this is like the sort of EV car argument. Don't buy an EV car because you care about the environment. Just can't buy an EV car because in the end it works out cheaper. And having been with a load of driving people on Monday, I can tell you that's the case. The point here is the supplementary feeding point has always played to people. It's like your conscience, your environmental conscience. But can I get straight to the numbers? Does it work out actually pretty cheap then to just feed all the way through because you're dragging a load of birds in?
I mean, with the price of wheat,
on how much
the price of wheat that there is at the minute, it's not significant, but it's a fine line, because I'm always in conversations with Matt, because he'll ring me, say mid-May, and say, "Look, Alex, we've got a lot of corvids, a lot of rooks, a lot of crows and jackdaws on these feeders at the minute. You know, shall I bring them in?" And you know, we hold off as best we can till the end of May, beginning of June. But for that sort of last 2 or 3 weeks of that month, you tend to find that a lot will go in rooks and jackdaws and crows.
Can you not sell some corvid and magpie shooting to hush power 410 enthusiasts like me?
Well, it all sort of goes against the general license conditions. That's the trouble. But if you're shooting it over crops, then you'd be all right. But
don't you have crops next to them?
Yeah, not far off. Yeah. We'd have to show the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
Well, but the reasoning is you're protected. Hold on, this general license stuff I've always been confused by, because you're feeding because you're trying to increase wild bird numbers.
Yes.
There's eggs about like there's no tomorrow because you've got a greater density of wild bird numbers than neighbouring farms and estates.
Yep.
You've also got crops next door, and we've got shitloads of crows and magpies that are only coming in because they're not fed elsewhere. I mean, honestly, is that a hard one to argue on general license level?
So so you can you'd be able to control carrying crows to protect songbirds and eggs and things like that. Rooks, unfortunately, in the last sort of few years have been taken off that list, so you can only shoot rooks if you're protecting crops, whereas before you could actually protect wildlife. So it's it's a difficult
What's
one.
your opinion on that one?
He's not allowed an opinion.
No.
George, what's yours?
I'm going to keep my counsel on that one.
You're not a banner of stupid people, George.
No. Listen, I want to know about some of the findings from Loddington that have filtered through into wider GWCT advice and training for gamekeepers and that sort of thing. What of the over the last 30 years? What are the insights from Loddington that have made their way into that?
Well, there's quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot on predation management because, of course, that long-term study that we're doing on wildlife management and checking using the three-legged stool. I mean, that's some great research that we've done there that shows the value of predation management, because of course predation management is such an emotive issue, and we've done quite a lot of science on it, not only at Loddington but also in the uplands as well, on some research projects in the uplands, which really does show the benefit of it. And there's also other things that have sort of filtered down into policy and into some of the agri-environment schemes. I mean, it's thought that probably 80% of the habitat options in the agri-environment handbook that's out there for the mid-tier originated from GWCT science and research.
So that's beetle banks and hedgerow management,
yeah,
and
beetle
that sort
banks. Of thing. Yeah. So it's quite significant.
So for a lot of our listeners belong to DIY syndicates.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that they do, sporadic predator control, not probably after the fact, reactive predator control a lot of the time. They may have, comparatively little control over the farming practices around them. So are there any bits of any lessons that they can draw from Loddington that they can easily implement? Because I think one of the big questions is, how do you replicate these things on your average shoot? And actually, I seem to remember, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, that when we do the game shooting census, that the vast majority of people do their shooting on a syndicate.
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest type of shooting. I mean, obviously, it's the sort of size of days you've talked about are the most in demand. A little bit of shooting for everyone type day. So yeah, if you can get this right at that level of shoot, that's when the shooting community is really onto something. And this is the crucial question. The things you've talked about, habitat management, cover crop choice, perches and pens, we'll find out about, but predation, as George mentions. I think the guides for shoots at this sort of level are absolutely crucial. This almost needs like ordering key things, key points. If you could share that now, that would be really interesting.
Yes, yeah. So I think from going around and about and seeing shoots, some things that spring up to my mind that are very often that I see is, one, maybe not enough pheasant feeders, not enough hoppers, not enough drinkers. And also in regards to stocking densities of release pens, we have got lots of science on the stocking side, density side of things, with release pheasant pens, that is. And our release guidelines and our sustainable releasing guidelines are 1,000 birds per hectare of release pen in plantation woodlands, and then it dropped that down to 700 in a hectare of release pen in sensitive sites, so semi-ancient woodland, things with more interesting flora and fauna in. And I think when you have those stocking densities, you reduce the likelihood of getting disease pressures, which then you reduce the likelihood that you're going to get predation pressures. But it's not just the size of the pen that really matters, it's what you've got in it as well. And you've got to get that habitat right in the release pen and make sure you can get some light in it. And to be honest, I think all woodland management and pen management and habitat management in release pens is very cheap to do. It's just time consuming. You've got to go in there with a saw and chop some trees down and make some brash piles and look where the sunlight rises and where the birds are going to want to get to in the morning to warm up, and try and create some clearings to get some sun in. I think that having the pens the correct size for what you're releasing is just so key, that it's just going to alleviate so many different issues that may pop up later on.
And this is really interesting because obviously what some shoots will then do is go, well, that's a lot of effort. I'm just going to put another 200 pheasants down and feed them a bit more and not worry about it. Is that basically the enemy of this scenario?
Yeah. I mean, if you've seen a hectare release pen with 1,000 birds in it up at ours at Loddington, and actually we put 800 in the hectare pen that we've got, and you go in there in summer and you wouldn't see a pheasant really, because it's so big. It's but they really do need that space, and we've got science to back it up that doing sustainable stocking densities is really, really key, and I think it's definitely should be rolled out further.
Can I ask a couple of questions on this though, because this has come up time and time again, and obviously when the BGA was trying to do its self-assurance, which anyway, different conversation, but so frustrating, stocking densities kept coming up because obviously bigger shoots, which have a slightly different purpose, let's be honest, than this, which is sad. I'm wondering what your view is on these stocking densities across shooting as a whole, and how we can make sure that we are abiding by these.
Yeah, I mean, I think with pheasants and larger commercial shoots, I mean, just make sure the pen is as big as you possibly could go. And I mean, the joy with commercial shoots is there should be some funds available to put these pens in and make them bigger if need be, or you'll be surprised if you reduce your stocking densities, you may well then reduce your disease issues, or if you get any disease issues, which then you would reduce your predation issues. So you'll be surprised, but I think everyone could do better. There's no doubt about it. But I think the stocking densities one is a difficult one.
You mentioned, if you see your release pens, apart from buying a day at auction, is there any way that people can come and look around Loddington? Do you do tours?
Yes, we do tend to do tours when we can. So yeah, just make contact with the Allerton project, and I'm sure we could set up a tour with a few people involved. We also do training and courses there. I'll do sort of rodenticide courses or predation management training there, and have a group of gamekeepers. And it's a really good, obviously really helpful to have the released game shoot on the Allerton project, because the people that walk doing other courses that we provide at the Allerton project will get to see the pheasant pen and can be enlightened.
I think, Chris, we should see if we can organise see what the appetite is within the Order of the Garters for a tour of Loddington. That'd be quite fun, wouldn't it?
I mean, for sure. I've seen once in a blue moon, a day swings by guns on pegs at Loddington.
Mm-hmm.
I think that obviously because we've got a close relationship with the GWCT, we can kind of somehow see if we can make that happen. But it just sounds so, when you stand on a peg, and for me, certainly, I think so much more than just about shooting the pheasants. You're looking at everything they're up to there. You're looking at what's gone into putting that bird over your head. And there's just something so rewarding about being on a shoot like this, where the time and effort, going back to your point just a minute ago, it's not just money you can chuck at it. Like, this is actual man hours all the time to make this thing happen. There's something just really cool about being on a shoot like that.
Yeah, we work together as a good team. I mean, the farm side of things do all the game cover drilling and the management of the habitat in that sense. And also we've got a conservation officer called Job who does some of the woodland work for us, and we're in constant talking about what we would benefit the shoot and overall biodiversity as a whole as well. So it does work well that we can collaborate all together. And we've got on-site ecologists and scientists, and so we have a lot of people to have to discuss before we do anything. especially with habitat management. Certain things like we got some of the woods now are quite dense with brambles, which is obviously amazing for biodiversity and for game, but not so amazing when you have to try and walk through it as a beater. So there's sort of a fine line of having to talk to lots of different people and get their opinions before we do anything. So we've got sort of similar problems that other shoots have, say, in the sense that you need to ask permission and make sure everyone's aware of what you're doing, and and if you're renting ground, there's certain restrictions that you can and can't do in woodlands. So when we were talking earlier about syndicate shoots and me saying the need to get your habitat right in your pens, I've been to some shoots where they're not allowed to do anything in the woodlands, so you're sort of restricted.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and obviously you are an advisor as well. So I mean, you're spending your time going around to loads of different shoots. And have you found at a sort of local level, when people take your advice, that there's quite big differences that can be gained?
Yes, definitely. So my role as an advisor was quite varied. So we sort of do training courses, do rodenticide courses and predation management courses and sustainable game bird courses. And the advisory side is sort of my passion. Having been a gamekeeper for a long time, it's really interests me to go to farms and estates and talk to them and try and help them along a little bit in all manner of different things. It might not just be to do with released pheasants, it might be grey partridge estate, or it might be just general woodland management or predation management. So that's really where I'm interested in, and where our sort of advisory service fits in to helping other estates out and getting the GWCT science out there, and talking to people about it.
Yeah, awesome.
It's so cool. Right. Well, it's been absolutely fascinating, and I think we could probably talk about it for a great deal longer. But
Alex, we like to finish our podcasts off with a section that we call Desert Island Shooting. I hope you're prepared.
I am indeed.
The scenario is this. The extinction level event asteroid hits tomorrow. Your affairs are in order. Loved ones and enemies reconciled. Dogs fed and tomatoes are watered. Super relaxed. So your last day shooting begins how?
It will have to be in late November, really early December, and it would have to be driven grouse shooting. I've shot driven grouse late in the season, so like late November, when the wind is really, really strong, and it is just miles apart from early August, September grouse.
Yeah.
It's very, very challenging, and because I can ask what the weather's doing, definitely no fog, because I've also been fogged off about 3 times that late in the year as well. So no fog, but with wind and with just a group of my mates. Back to back would be amazing, but if there's only one day, then just the one day. Staying somewhere nice, and definitely with dogs included. A lot of my friends that shoot have dogs. They always bring their dogs. I've got 2 springers. I tend to bring them out with me as well. So definitely with a big team of dogs out there on the moor.
Lovely. Any particular moor?
No. I like ones around Helmsley Way. So any round there would be marvellous.
And what about once the shooting's done? Is there a particular pub?
Definitely pub, but old school pub. So you can barely see because it's open fire and there's so much smoke in the pub that you have to sort of swim.
You're going to die anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, one that serves very dark beer.
Definitely very dark beer. No pale ale seen anywhere.
That part of the world is good for that type of pub, actually, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, very much so.
Beer you could consume with a fork.
Yes.
Very nice.
That's horrendous.
Yeah, really nice. Anyone in particular with you? You mentioned a few mates.
Yeah, just my general keeper friends and guys that I've grew up with and shot with. I mean, one guy that has been with me throughout most of my gamekeeping career and actually was he was almost, you could say, shoot mannered captain, I would call him, because he would be the guy that would stand at the front of the drive telling me where the birds are going, how many have been shot, who hasn't had any shooting. So I can, when I was at the back and I couldn't see what was going on, I could tweak things accordingly. And his name's Alan Wiley. And he'd definitely be there.
Lovely stuff.
In the pound seat. Nice. Good one, Alan.
Very good. Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. It's been fun. It's been really interesting. Thank you for coming along.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you both.
Cheers, Alex, and keep up the good work to you and everyone at the GWCT. Honestly, we from the shooting community as a whole, thank you.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you.
Right. So before we go, all that remains for me to say is that there is a final reminder that you can get your hands on a pair of the very exclusive Guns on Pegs podcast shooting sock garters by sending us your shooting dilemmas for us to resolve, or your unpopular opinions, your forgotten drives, your podcast suggestions, or any of the other features that we have had over the last 5 years. Just drop us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com, and if we read it out in the next episode or any future episodes, we will send you some garters. Do let us know what you think of this new split format. I hope you'll really have enjoyed it. Chris and I will be back in a couple of weeks' time with a very special guest, actually. Very excited about this one. I don't know if I should say who it is. Should we say who it is? No?
Wait.
Keep it a secret. Okay.
We're not like normal podcasts, George, where we trail stuff.
I know, but we actually know who it's going to be this time. Okay, we'll keep it secret. We'll just trail it like that. I'll be back with Jake, Sam, and Avian before that anyway. So until then, thanks very much for listening, and goodbye.
I reckon that's more of a trail than trailing here.